If you're new to meditation, I would say just let your breath do whatever it's doing. If you're more practiced in meditation, I would say practice breathing the way I have been talking about these breathing practices point to, which is to breathe slowly, right? To breathe deeply, and to breathe lightly. So if you're a practiced meditator, you can focus on the belly moving and practice breathing very lightly, so lightly that the hairs of your nose don't move. That's a practice. Breathing slowly, so you're breathing less times a minute. The average breather is breathing 12 or more times a minute. If you practice this consistently, you can get down to 4.5 times a minute, which is a very healthy way of breathing. And I also recommend that you do this breathing practice similar to what we did, at least 5 minutes a day. That's not asking a lot. And if you do it just before you practice meditation, that'll help ease you into the experience of meditating. And then during meditation, to practice breathing lightly, slowly, and deeply from the belly, through the nostrils, never from the mouth. And then to pay attention, become more conscious of your breath as often as you can during the day, and practice breathing in this way, softly, lightly, and deeply from the nostrils and the belly. And when you go to sleep at night and you're lying in bed, practice breathing that way. Yeah? Practice breathing that way and just letting go, and you'll fall into sleep. Questions? Other questions? Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about the present moment? I know you said it's not a point on a timeline. I want to hear a little bit more about that, because sometimes I feel like I'm a fish in the ocean looking for the water,
Well, the way to talk about the present moment would be to pay attention to something that's happening now, which is the breath, right? And don't think about time. Time is a concept that there's no reality of time. There is no real past and there is no real future. And the only time that is real is the present moment. It's not a function of time, it's outside of time. There is no time there. It's not the middle between the past and the future, because that's in time, right? The present moment is outside of time, and you're always experiencing the present moment because the awareness that you are is that moment. You are, when you're being what you are as awareness, right? You're not having an experience, you are the experience. Because there is nobody to have the experience. This is the reason that suffering stops when you get practiced enough at experiencing your true nature. Right? Why? Because if you get practiced enough in experiencing your true nature, you're experiencing your absence. And in your absence, there's happiness. In your presence, there's suffering. When I say in your presence, I mean in the presence of what you call yourself as a personality or a psychological self. In that presence as a personality or a psychological self, you're living in a thought process, aren't you? And you think you're the source of those thoughts, and that's a confusion, that's a mistake. You're not the source of those thoughts. This is one of the things that's a very important part of the teaching to understand, right? You are already outside of time because there is no such thing as time really. And you are already always being what you are. You've never not been what you are. But you've been paying attention to a thought process that says you're something else. And because there's 8 billion people doing that, we call it reality. We call it the truth. And everybody believes that they are the body and they are the personality because that's the consensual agreement. Reality for human beings is a function of consensus, is it not? Yeah. What we consider to be real is what we all agree is real. That's what's real. Right? The only problem is that's not what's real. And if you're living in an unreal world, you can't experience anything real. If you're living in the world of a personality and the personality is unreal, how are you ever going to experience happiness? It's impossible. You can't experience anything as something that doesn't exist, and the personality doesn't exist. This is the reason why the pursuit of happiness is so popular, right? Because since I'm not experiencing being happy, it must be a function of my circumstances. And so I need to identify what are the right circumstances that will cause my happiness, right? That's the process, right? And what we do is we associate money with happiness, don't we? Why? Because it can buy things. And we associate having things with being happy, don't we? Even though the evidence is clear it doesn't work, we still do it. Everything you've ever bought to be happy never worked, did it? It seemed to work for a brief period of time, but that's not happiness, that's gratification. That's called getting what you want, right? But that gratification doesn't last because the target keeps moving. Every time you get what you want, it seems like you're happy, but it's not happiness, it is gratification, and that gratification loses its appeal and interest as time passes, right? Because that never was the real source of happiness. It can't be the real source of happiness. So the circumstances that people live their lives in are taken to be the source of their happiness. If you ask anybody, what's the source of your happiness, right? What would make you happy, right? And what's the source of your suffering? What would cause you to suffer? The answer to both questions is circumstances. As long as that's the case, you're stuck. As long as that's the case, you're on the gerbil wheel of humanity. As long as that's the case, you will unwittingly and unconsciously continue to pursue happiness as if it exists in the world. Right? And the evidence for that is very clear. It doesn't exist in the world. You can look at the evidence. It's obvious if you look at some of the people in the world that have the most money, and you really look at them and look at their face and look at what they're saying and what they're doing, they ain't happy. They ain't happy. They're trying to get enough money that they don't have to worry about having enough money. How's that going to work, right? You get billionaires that are trying to make more money, right? Because they figure, well, I know the billions making me happy, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. So I'm not happy, so I have to get more, right? So it just doesn't work. So then the question becomes, okay, what's the source of happiness? And the answer to that is the source of happiness is you. The source of happiness is experiencing the awareness that is your true nature, that is real, that is your identity, right? That lives outside of time, that doesn't need anything, it doesn't want anything, it's not physical, it's not a male or a female, it didn't come from anywhere, it's not going anywhere. The only thing you can say about it is that it is. It is. And the relationship between that awareness and the circumstances is a very interesting relationship. The relationship between awareness and circumstances is that the awareness allows the circumstances to be whatever they are. It doesn't matter because it's not trying to get anything from circumstances. You get that? It allows the circumstances to be what they are at all times. It's not trying to change anything. It's not trying to control anything. It's not struggling with anything. And the source of suffering is thinking, right, that what's happening shouldn't be happening, isn't it? If you look at your suffering, the suffering is always coming from the same exact thing. What's happening is not what should be happening. I don't like it. I don't want it. I'm going to try and change it. I'm going to struggle with it. I'm going to figure it out. Right? And if I can get it figured out enough, I'll fix it. And if I fix it, it'll work. Right? But that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Right? Because the problem is not what's happening. The problem is what you think about what's happening, isn't it? If you don't think about it, is there anything wrong with right now? No. Isn't that always true? If that's always true, right, it just goes to show that when you think about things, the thought activity produces suffering. Because the thought activity is constantly evaluating and judging everything that's happening and telling you what's right and what's wrong, what should be happening and what shouldn't be happening. And when it shouldn't be happening, you don't like it. And when it shouldn't be happening, you get annoyed. When it should be happening, you get angry. Or when it shouldn't be happening, you get scared, right? This is called suffering. It's an uncomfortable experience of being alive. Right? And all the while your attention is being taken by that thought process, that's an uncomfortable experience of being alive, the awareness is there in the background being unnoticed. It's never changed. It's always consistent. It's always exactly the same. Right? The only thing that's different is that you're not paying attention to it. That's all. And when you're practiced enough in meditation, right, you have access. When you're practiced enough in meditation, it gets to the point where you find yourself suffering and you recognize now that you have the ability to be the awareness and see it from a place beyond it. You have the ability to be the awareness and see the personality instead of suffer from being the personality. So that's why the teachers of these teachings and practices say these teachings and practices are it's not to free you from circumstances, it's to free you from you. You're the problem. The thinking activity is the problem, because in the thinking activity, you're always comparing everything, aren't you? Aren't you comparing sex to the best sex you ever had? It's automatic. It's automatic. Aren't you comparing the weather to what the weather should be? Yeah. All the time, right? If you begin to be aware from the position and the viewpoint of awareness of the activity of the personality, right? You begin to understand that you don't have to play that game. You begin to understand you can see it and not be it. You can begin to understand you can see the thought process that tells you that the weather is wrong and not believe it. You can interrupt the way you're being from taking yourself to be a physical body and a thought activity. You can interrupt that, right, with an actual direct seeing of things as they are. And when you see things as they are, you see that your happiness is already happening, right? But you're just continuing to pay attention to this identity that isn't real and will never be happy. That's all. That's the whole thing in a nutshell, right? So, what I said earlier is, you should, if you understand what I've been saying, you should be experiencing desperation, right? Desperation. You should be desperate about wanting to experience the truth. The truth shall set you free, but not as an understanding or a thought process. The truth will set you free as an experience you're having of being free. That's the truth that'll set you free. The experience of your true nature, right? And your true nature never resists, never fights with, never tries to control anything, right? And when you can consistently experience yourself as that awareness, your life gets easier because you're not struggling anymore. You're not resisting anything. You don't have any enemies. You're not in conflict with anything. You're not in conflict with life. You're just allowing everything to be the way it is, right? And when you let life be the way life is, life will let you be the way you are. Simple as that. Other questions? See, if you come to this class on a regular basis, right, your presence here and you're listening to these teachings and your interest in these practices, right, will eventually help to start to weaken the reality of your personality. Your personality will start to seem less and less real, and because it's less and less real, it has less and less control over you. Yeah? When you understand that the activity that's occurring in your mind, right, is insubstantial. It's not really happening. That really happened. But when you recognize that the activity in your mind is insubstantial, it's not really happening, right? It can allow you to understand that's a dream compared to reality. The reality is to be present to life as life is and allow life to be the way it is. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it feels bad. When you can allow it all to be the way it is, you experience aliveness. You can't have up without down. You can't have happiness without sadness and without fear and without anger. You can't have it. It's got to all be there for you to experience a complete life. And when you're experiencing yourself as awareness, you can allow everything to be the way it is because it's not affecting you anymore. Right? Even your own mind stops affecting you. You can be present to your own mind and not be affected by it because you understand, right, who you are and what you are is free from that. It's never that. It's not that. That's what Paul Hederman says all the time. You know, he says that whenever the head is going crazy, it's not bothering me because I'm not that. I'm the awareness of that, and the awareness of that is always exactly the same. It's always exactly the same. It's always peaceful. It's always still. It's always in a state of acceptance, right? And the state of acceptance it's in is not the acceptance that it's doing in order, you're not doing anything to accept things, it's just your nature. It's just your nature. So, enough said. If you get the message here, if you get the invitation, right, it's a spiritual subpoena. If you get the message here, then you should feel an interest in meditation and breath practice. And when I say meditation, at least 30 minutes a day without fail. If you're not able to do meditation for 30 minutes a day without fail, you're living the life your mind allows you to live.
Should it be 30 minutes all at once? Or
Yes.
should it be all at once?
Yeah. At least 30 minutes formal meditation all at once every day, like brushing your teeth without fail. Right? And then when you get your feet wet with that, you can begin to practice informal meditation, which is resting as awareness for brief moments as often as possible during the day. So you're punctuating reality with these wake-ups, right? And if you keep punctuating these realities with wake-ups, at some point it'll reach a critical mass, and you'll be consistently aware that you're aware. And that's a transformation. That's a different life. That's not the life of the personality. That's the life of your true nature as awareness, and that is a happy life. That's a content life, and that's a peaceful life. That's what's on offer. All right? So the next class will be Thursday at 5 o'clock. And if you're not there, you're living in your mind's world. See you later.